Hi, I'm Alice Landell, and I'm the Director of Communication for the Oregon Justice Resource Center, a nonprofit law firm based in Portland and serving the whole state of Oregon. We provide free legal services to Oregonians in prison, and we defend the civil rights of people harmed by law enforcement. This year, we're celebrating 10 years since our founding. When Bob and Singh and Aaron McKee created the Oregon Justice Resource Center, they had a vision to combine legal services for people in need, advocacy, public education, communications, and collaborating with partners to end mass incarceration. In the past decade, we've grown tremendously, from working out of one basement room to now a fully fledged legal organization. As we look back on the past 10 years and explore our vision for the future, we invite you to join us as a supporter by donating or taking part in our first ever online auction. Now we invite our longtime friend and supporter, Jackie Witt, an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation, to acknowledge the first peoples of the land we are on today.
We would like to take a moment and pay homage to our First Nation people who have been devoted stewards to this land long before the colonizers began implementing their legacies of oppression and devastation. Let us counter the doctrine of discovery as we acknowledge that much, if not all of this land beneath our feet is stolen land, having been acquired through deceptive acts and broken treaties. This territory first belonged to the tribes of Multnomah, Kalapuya, Molalla, Chinook, Klamath, and many, many more. Let us bring forward the truth that our Native American brothers and sisters and their precious children were forcibly removed from this land. They were assimilated, enslaved, killed, disbanded, sold, and shipped off this continent. Mary Lyons from the Leech Band Lake of Ojibwe once shared that it is important for us to understand the long-standing history that has brought us to reside on this land, and to seek to understand our place within that history. Land acknowledgements do not exist in past tense or historical context. Colonialism is a current and ongoing process, and we need to build our mindfulness of our present participation. When we talk about land, land is a part of who we are. It's a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, and our future. We carry our ancestors within us, and they are around us. It is our hope that by acknowledging this, that we may be able to begin the long and overdue process of reconciliation to our Native American nations still occupying this land. From the Umatilla of the Northwest to the Choctaw of the South and the hundreds of tribes and clans in between. We invite you all to search for ways to support Indigenous sovereignty and learn the Native tribes that occupy the territories that you reside in, and also to press for urgent reforms that protect the land and the water and the rights of these communities. Thank you all in advance for your support.
Hi, I'm Amy Wexler. I'm the Associate Director for the Oregon Justice Resource Center, and I'm so glad that you're joining us today. I just want to tell you about our auction that we're having. OJRC has been around for 10 years, and this is our first time ever doing an auction. And we are doing this so that we can virtually have folks support the work that we do. If you're not familiar with what OJRC does, we are fighting on many fronts to protect the rights of the accused and the incarcerated and fight to end mass incarceration and white supremacy. So I'd love to have you get online, check out our auction items. We've got so many great things to bid on. Some of them are here behind me, and I'll show you that later. But we've got a trip to Cabo on there. We have hotel stays. We have a raffle. And in the raffle, tickets are $25. We are only going to sell up to 400 tickets. And you can win a weekend at the Stephanie Inn, which is a beautiful place in Cannon Beach. It also comes with a couples massage, and you can use that anytime during the year. So I hope that you get online and you bid and you buy some raffle tickets. So you're going to go to ojrc.info. That's our website. You can also go to the auction website directly, which is 32auctions.com/OJRC. And you can go to any of our social media and find a link to the auction there. So you can find us on Twitter at OJR Center, same with on Instagram at OJR Center, or on Facebook at Oregon Justice Resource Center. So thank you so much for supporting our work. We can't represent pro bono folks who are currently incarcerated and those who have been victims of state violence without your help. So please get online, bid, buy raffle tickets, just make a donation. We, again, can't do our work without you. Thank you so much.
If you didn't see last year's Black Lives Matter uprising in Portland coming, you weren't seeing what we have been seeing for years at the Oregon Justice Resource Center. Black people and allies have been in the streets for years opposing far-right extremism. But when George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis on May 25, 2020, an unprecedented number of people rose up in cities across the U.S., including in Oregon. Portlanders were in the streets night after night, demanding justice for Black lives and fundamental change to the Portland Police Bureau. The righteous anger that people felt came to a head when the Trump administration sent out-of-town federal officers into Portland to confront protesters. The Oregon Justice Resource Center has been at the heart of efforts to protect the legal rights of protesters harmed by police. The ways that people's constitutional rights have been violated and their bodies and minds injured will certainly keep you up at night. But our Civil Rights Project team is doing something to fight back. Take us back to last year when we saw the uprising for Black lives beginning in the streets of Portland. What were you thinking as a civil rights lawyer? What kind of things were you noticing? What were you thinking about as that movement was beginning?
So at the very beginning, days into it, what we saw was a massive police use of force. Tear gas, weapons used against crowds, almost immediately when the protests started. So we saw that in the media, we saw it all over Twitter, Instagram, and we heard a lot of calls and emails about it. And so what we did was we worked with people who were out in the streets who wanted our protection, wanted the protection of the law that the Constitution gives us, and asked the court to stop the city from being able to do that.
So our job basically is about trying to protect people's right to protest and protect their bodies even while they're out on the streets. With particular reference to the issue of tear gas, like what have we done to try to deal with the use of tear gas, because it is being used widely on the crowds and it is so indiscriminate and harms people just really at random.
Right, so the first thing we did was ask the court to temporarily restrain this city from using tear gas on crowds. We got that, we did get that, and that has been in place ever since. The city has changed the policies, the state has changed the laws, and we had seen some tear gas after a brief pause. But for a while, we were able to stop the city from using tear gas on protests like they had been in the early days.
What other issues have we tried to address around the way that protesters are being harmed by police violence?
So immediately, again, in the first days of the protests, we saw police use not only tear gas, but also other weapons, impact munitions, pepper spray, flashbangs against protests. And what our TRO did is try to limit those also. And the court agreed that police were likely using those in an unconstitutional way and prevented the city from using those in certain ways.
And how does the legal work that we're doing to try to protect people's rights, like how do you see that kind of connecting to what's happening in the streets? How significant is it to people's ability to be in the streets?
Right, so it does a couple things. First, like we were talking about, the first aim is protect people who are in the streets at the time from being violently attacked by police. The second thing is what it does is it can get personal justice for people who are harmed. The third thing it can do is provide policy or practice change by the police department, and it can also provide accountability through civil legal process that isn't otherwise there through the city or police failing to check the actions of their officers.
Don't forget, we have so many items in our auction for you to take a look at. We have everything from vacation getaways to art and jewelry, from gift certificates to local restaurants, to signed copies of books by some of today's civil rights heroes. Bidding in the auction is easy to do. You can see the auction items and place your bids at the website 32auctions.com/OJRC. Bidding is open from October 15th until October 29th. All the money raised will fund our free legal services for people in prison and people whose civil rights have been violated. We also have a profit share arrangement with our artists who are currently or formerly incarcerated. They will receive half of the money raised on those items, and we will receive the other half. Check out what we have and see whether there's anything you'd like to bid for. I promise you we have a lot of options, so there really will be something for everyone. One of the groups of people within Oregon's prison system that we have worked with for a long time now as an organization is women. And women typically tend to be an overlooked group within the prison population. I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about women in Oregon's prison system. What have they gone through? What has gotten them into prison? And what are they experiencing within the prison today?
Thank you for asking that question. Very little is known about what the women face in our penal system today, and for a long time our legal system has been punitive, and women that are in prison are facing a lot of trauma from the systems of the prison system itself to the procedures of bringing women in, transferring women, searches through their property, policies around visitation, visits with their kids, access to their families. They face incredible trauma, and that's just what they're experiencing in prison. I mean, to think of the things that actually brought them to prison. Most of the women that I have spoken to in prison have faced extreme adverse childhood experiences, as well as their caregivers may have had mental health issues or addiction. We're all starting to learn that addiction is a product of untreated trauma, undiagnosed mental health issues, poverty, lack of life skills. And those are all the things that have brought women to prison. And to think about all the things they're facing there in the prison, when you think about everything that brought them to prison, is really a lot to think about. It's pretty upsetting.
For sure. And what we're trying to do within the Oregon Justice Resource Center is put more light, more attention on the experiences of women in the system, as well as provide legal services to women. What have you noticed over the years that you have been engaged with us as an organization, and you've been a wonderful supporter to us? What have you noticed that Oregon Justice Resource Center has been able to do around these issues that are impacting the women in the prison system?
Well, I'd like to say first that Oregon Justice Resource Center is an incredible organization that is doing groundbreaking work with the women in prison. OJRC provides legal services as well as advocacy. They help with paperwork that people wouldn't normally be able to file, that can get their sentences aligned, or things that may have not been handed down properly in their court paperwork. They help the ladies get connected to their children. They may have been awarded visits but are not actually able to access those visits. And OJRC can, just with filing a paper or two, can get that in motion. And it's such a vital part of what we need to be doing for these women in these facilities, because they are our community members. And whether people really understand it or not, if we don't help the people that are incarcerated, especially women who are incarcerated, they come back to our community and they're not able to get reintegrated or insert themselves properly, which often leads back to bad relationships, more addiction, more mental health, more trauma, and ultimately leads them back into the system, separated from their families again, and doing the cycle all over again. And it really hurts the community.
Thank you, Jackie. One of the greatest injustices that we see in Oregon's legal system is when people are wrongfully convicted and sentenced to prison for a crime they never committed, or even a crime that never took place at all. That's what happened to one of our Oregon Innocence Project clients, Earl Bain. He is our most recent exoneree and the first person to be granted a pardon on the grounds of innocence by Governor Kate Brown. Our senior staff attorney with the Oregon Innocence Project, Brittany Plesser, represented Earl during his battle to clear his name. She caught up with him earlier to reflect on what happened.
Hey Earl, will you please tell us the story of how you came to be wrongfully convicted and incarcerated?
The short version, I was deployed overseas to Afghanistan Did my tour there, wound up divorcing my wife at the time when I got back to the States and got custody of my daughters. It was, to put it nicely, a nightmare. The custody battle, just everything, and wound up being falsely accused and then charged and convicted and sent to prison. Despite no evidence, despite multiple flaws in the case, etc. Wound up doing over 6 years, still all the while claiming my innocence and fighting for my freedom and to clear my name. But that's basically it in a nutshell.
Can you tell us what it felt like to have your daughter recant her statement and have a court not listen to that, not listen to her voice?
It was frustrating. Almost like just like a soul drop. Like the entire time I've been trying to get people to see and hear the truth, and then when it's spoken, nobody seemed like they cared or wanted to listen or believed it. So it was just like a kick in the guts, I guess.
You were released before the governor granted your pardon. But
Yep.
What did that grant actually change? How did that change? How did that decision help you mentally, internally, or externally? How has it changed your life?
Honestly, it gave me my life back. When you go that many years with this just dark cloud hanging over your head and having to explain yourself to everyone that yes, this happened, but that's not me, and then trying to get people to believe that, you stop talking to people, you stop trying and caring. But now I don't have to do that anymore. I can go out and just live my life, try and rebuild. And I would get so dark and so down because of all that, before the exoneration, and almost like it was just didn't even want to fight anymore. Between the war and then going to prison shortly after that, it's just like two huge blows mentally and emotionally and physically that almost a few times almost didn't even survive that. But that exoneration just gave me almost like a new lease on life, I guess. That makes sense. But
So Earl, what would you tell people about the Oregon Innocence Project if they asked you?
These are the people that won't give up on you when everyone else has. They'll fight harder for you than you even want to fight for yourself at times. I honestly couldn't recommend a better group of people. And I served with a lot of good people overseas, and I rank these guys right up with them. People who have your back. Every time we get turned down somewhere, we try another approach and another avenue, and finally got it in the end. You guys never gave up.
Hi, I am so excited to show you some of the items we have up for bid on our auction. We have a bunch of great tickets to Thorns games, Timbers games, Blazers games. One of the Thorns tickets comes with this great scarf. So get online and check that out and go see some great sporting events. We have some silver jewelry. This jewelry is antique. It's vintage stuff that's been refurbished. So if you're interested in silver jewelry, get online and look at that. We have a lot of great art. One thing that was donated, which I am just in love with, are these adorable planters. You can put plants in them, you could keep pens in them. They're just super, super cute. And you'll be bidding against me on those. We have 2 of these amazing water drop jugs. You actually can find these on Design Within Reach, but they were donated by the artist Andy Covell of Esk Studios. She was recently on Netflix's Blown Away, their TV show about glass blowing, and this is one of them. So the other one's actually quite a bit larger, and this is just a beautiful piece that you just really would love to have in your home. Next, we have some Yeezys. If you're not familiar, Kanye West did a collaboration with Adidas, and there's quite a wide range of Yeezy shoes. We have 2 pairs. This is one of them. I think these are the dad shoes that every dad would love to have. So check them out. Maybe also your teenage son. So they're men's 9.5, and I hope that you like them. We have a very cool jacket. This is the kind of thing that maybe you also will wear to your kid's soccer game, or your kid's gonna wear it to homecoming. It's a collaboration with Adidas and Bape, and it was from part of their football line, and it's really a unique and special piece that you can't find just anywhere. I also should say we have trips and hotel stays. You can get online and bid on a trip to Cabo. We have a raffle for a stay at the Stephanie Inn, which includes a couples massage for 2. And so raffle tickets are just $25. And if you get raffle tickets, we're only going to sell as many as 400. So your odds are really good of winning that. So again, that was a 2-night stay at the Stephanie Inn in Cannon Beach, only for guests 14 and older. And you get a couples massage. So the next series of things I'm going to show you are art that was donated by folks who are currently incarcerated. Any of these items, we are going to share any money brought in with the person who's currently incarcerated. They will get half and we'll keep half to fund our programs. And so we're just incredibly grateful that the folks who are incarcerated see the value of what we're doing, and they donated art that we could auction off, and that both they and we are benefiting from. So we have a set here of greeting cards. This one's my favorite because I happen to really love otters. And he drew this otter and said, "Hey there, you otter, wear a mask." And it's really adorable. We have another artist who has done really fine colored pencil and ink work. I have 2 of his pieces. This is one, this fairy stepping on a flower, and this would be, beautiful in any kid's room or playroom. He's put a ton of detail into that. And when you think about the conditions that this art is made in, it's really just that much more impressive. These next 2 are by the same artist. They're pretty different styles, so I'm gonna hold them both up at the same time. And they are this adorable seafaring bear, and then this dragon who's watching a movie, eating some crunchy fried sheep. So these are both done with really great attention to detail, and a lot of time spent on each one. We have 3 purses. I've only brought one to show you today, but this gentleman went to the craft studio inside the prison, and he made this leather purse. He's made 3 of them for us to auction off, and he obviously has great skill and craftsmanship and care to his work and attention to detail. So again, buying this, you're both supporting somebody who's incarcerated as well as supporting our work to help those who are incarcerated. And then the last item is just a really stunning piece. It's by the same artist who did the fairy. And this is a Native American that he drew with just really fine shading. This was all done with colored pencils and pen. And again, it's really in pristine condition and done under difficult circumstances. So we're really proud to share that with you. So thank you. Get online, go to our auction website. You can find it on our website, which is ojrc.info, or go to 32auctions.com/OJRC. Thank you so much for bidding on these and so many more items that we have on there. There's over 70 items plus that raffle. So thank you so much.
I want you to take us back 18 months to the beginning of the pandemic, when we were all starting to realize just what COVID was going to mean for our lives. What were you thinking about? What were you hearing about with regard to the prison system as the pandemic was starting?
Sure. I mean, in the months up to that point in March, I think we had been watching what was happening around the world, and particularly in prisons around the world. We'd seen in Italy and China, for instance, that there were mass outbreaks in those facilities, and people were struggling to just survive and be heard in that circumstance. So we knew that we had to engage ODOC as quickly as possible to find out what it was that they were going to be doing to protect people. And really, we knew that the thing they could have done to best protect people was decarcerate. And when it became clear that wasn't going to happen, that's when we decided to act, and 7 brave plaintiffs stepped forward to seek a lawsuit against the state.
Just paint a picture for us of what it has been like for people in prison during the pandemic. What has that experience been like for them?
Well, it's been a time of constant fear and just helplessness. I mean, I think while a lot of us have the ability to protect ourselves on the outside by being socially distant from one another, by staying at home, folks on the inside did not have that luxury. You're stuck in a dorm room cell with hundreds of people, and you can reach out and touch the person next to you in your bunk. Folks just did not feel like they were going to be safe or protected in these facilities, and to live with that stress for 18 months has been unbearable for a lot of people.
One thing that we have been able to achieve for people, though, was the vaccines. We were able to get that order that people were going to get immediate access to vaccination. Just talk to me about what was the impact of that for people who are incarcerated? Like, how do people respond to that?
It was tremendous and really immediate, I think, the effect that it had. AICs by droves got vaccinated within those first few weeks, and really kind of led the way, I think, for the public to know that these vaccines are safe for everybody. And the deaths basically halted by that time. Infection rates plummeted. It was striking how effective it was at combating the disease.
So out here, we may feel a little bit like the pandemic is starting to come to an end. Things are getting a little better, perhaps. But there are many people in the prison system, or families of people in prison, who are still dealing with the consequences. We've got families who've lost loved ones. We've got people who are experiencing long COVID. How does the fight continue on this issue? Like, how will you continue to pursue justice for the people who've been impacted?
While we couldn't win protections at the outset of this case for people, and while we were successful in getting one of the biggest protections, which was vaccines, so many people got hurt in this process. Nearly, conservatively, about a quarter of ODOC inmates caught the disease, and 44 people died. We have to have an accounting of that. We need to seek accountability against the state, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And we're going to litigate this case until there's justice for people.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
So, Barvin, it's been 10 years since you founded the Oregon Justice Resource Center. Can you just take us back a little, give us a flavor of what's been happening over the last decade?
Yeah, 10 years ago, Aaron and I co-founded the Oregon Justice Resource Center, and we launched it with no funding. I worked out of my apartment with no pay for the first year. And it was really based on this belief that we needed a legal organization to focus on mass incarceration in Oregon and to be able to provide legal services and support for individuals who are going through the criminal legal system or who've been harmed by the system. You know, part of when we launched the Oregon Justice Resource Center, I would say I was a bit naive in understanding sort of the demands of a nonprofit. But over the past 10 years, we've been, I think, blessed by robust support, a shift in sort of the attention on this issue. And now, when the organization started with just me in my apartment, we now have 42 employees working across, once we get back into an office space, 3 office spaces on a floor of a building. So it's really quite remarkable. And we're providing legal services across 6 legal programs to about 700 people each year.
One thing that I have noticed is how much more public attention there is now on issues that we're trying to draw people's attention to, like mass incarceration, mass criminalization, the problems in the prison system. What have you observed about how much more engaged people now are with those issues?
Yeah, I think over the past 10 years, there's been a lot of shift in attention onto this issue. I mean, when we launched the organization, the term mass incarceration was really a term that was used for within sort of the space of advocacy. Like, it wasn't something mainstream. I think that really shifted when Michelle Alexander published her book on mass incarceration, which is a seminal piece on the issue, and really helped thrust this issue, at least out from the advocacy space and academia into mainstream. And I think coupled with technology, what we've seen is videos of police brutality, police violence, police killings, things that we cannot ignore. And we've had to deal with that. And I think the last year we've seen protest has been what I would say a common sense response to that violence. Unfortunately, the videos that we see are only the tip of the iceberg because we can't take videos into prisons, jails. So the type of violence and horrors that we're seeing, at least with police misconduct and issues, exist in so many different areas of our society that we haven't seen. And I think people are beginning to realize that.
So it's been 10 years, and now we're looking ahead to the next decade of the Oregon Justice Resource Center. What do you expect to see in that time?
Yeah, I think the past 10 years, so much of our work and work around the country has been focused on, has been looking at issues more in silos or independently, sort of disconnected from each other. So it would be law enforcement or police misconduct issues, public defense, prison issues, jail issues, reentry issues. The rise of or resurgence of the alt-right and white supremacy or white nationalist groups. And I think what we're beginning to see is people recognizing that the value system that sustains mass incarceration and all this is white supremacy. It's a manifestation of white supremacy. And so now I think the next decade will be really focused on looking at these issues more holistically and as connected. And I think OJRC is uniquely positioned to be able to really jump into that next decade, because the whole concept of OJRC was to bring these different types of organization or different types of programs together under one roof. So that way we have different professional skill sets, experiences, all working together that could cross-collaborate and begin to work on mass incarceration in totality and holistically, and really help us reorient away from the value system of white supremacy.
Bhavin, thanks very much. Thanks for sticking with us today as we shared our work on behalf of Oregonians in prison and those whose civil rights have been denied. We hope we've given you some insights into why we do this work and why it's so important that our clients can count on you to help make this all possible. The work of justice is often slow and incomplete. Oregon has a very long way to go to fulfill its highest ideals when it comes to how we address harm in our communities and how we provide opportunity to all our people to thrive. But the Oregon Justice Resource Center is determined to continue the fight for people's rights and to make it clear to those who try to harm some of the most marginalized and excluded Oregonians that we will oppose them. Our work goes on as we enter our second decade, and we encourage you to join us. If you're able to support our work with a donation or by bidding in our auction, know that we take your trust very seriously. Remember, you can take part in the auction from October 15th to October 29th, and we have tons of interesting items to look at. Thank you for having our backs over the past 10 years and for helping us push forward into our second decade.